What is the greatest moral threat that we face as a country? As you travel around, what would you say that is a moral threat to this country?
I can go first. I have the least time, so I'm going to go fast.
Okay.
I think we have told ourselves the myth that we are protecting ourselves against a tyranny of the majority. Right? Everything the left has weaponized, the civil rights laws or everything else, that we're protecting ourselves against a tyranny of the majority. The real threat that we face, the moral threat, is a tyranny of the minority in this country. I think there is a fringe minority who hates this country and what we're founded on. And you think about the paradox as one, and again, the same people who say that, the civil rights movement that began with the idea that you get ahead in this country not on the color of your skin, but not on the color of your skin, but on the content of your character, is now the movement that's been perverted to say we don't want any more black faces that don't want to be a black voice. Right? The same LGBTQIA, there's so many letters, they just put a little plus at the end, movement that says the sex of the person you're attracted to on the day you're born is hardwired, even though there's no gay gene, now saying that your own biological sex is completely fluid over the course of your life, even though there's 2 sex chromosomes. These things don't make sense. And so I think the greatest moral threat is the rise of this new tyranny of the minority. And again, I come back to it, Bob, the only reason they're able to win, the real threat, is that they are preying on a vacuum of purpose and meaning. And while I have spent the last several years, through my first book, Woke Inc. and others, criticizing the left for this, I think we can point the finger all we want. We have to ask, what was our failure in failing to fill that moral vacuum, that spiritual and moral and national identity void? And so if we have the courage to stand for what we actually stand for, individual, family, nation, God, that will beat race, gender, sexuality, and climate. But right now, that moral threat is that vacuum. In individual, family, nation, God, try 2 to start with, but you can't be at 0, which is where we are today. That black hole is the moral threat we face, and I think we need to step up and fill that vacuum.
And what a great opportunity for the church. Ambassador Haley?
You know, I look, and what worries me the most is this national self-loathing that has taken over our country. I mean, the idea that they say America's bad or rotten or racist. I was elected the first female minority governor in history. America's not racist, we're blessed. Our kids need to know to love America. They need to be saying the Pledge of Allegiance when they start school every day. We've got to go back to what we always knew. Do you remember when you were growing up? How simple life was? How safe it felt? It was about faith, family, and country. Your parents raised you to be responsible individuals. You went to school and you learned what it meant to be successful. You went to church and you found your faith and your conscience. We could have that again. But in order to have that again, we've got to realize how far we've drifted and come back to what makes this country so great. And when we do that, America has an amazing ability to self-correct. But you have to acknowledge we've hit rock bottom. And when you hit rock bottom, there's only one place to go, and that's up. And it's now time for us to start looking up and saying, now is the time, now is the place, let's get back to what made our country great in the first place.
And to go back up, we're going to need leadership. Governor DeSantis.
I think part of the root of all this is the elites in this country have abandoned the Constitution as the guiding light of our civic life. And you see it in a number of different ways. Our founding fathers created 3 branches of government. They did not create a 4th branch of government, an administrative state that looms over us, imposes its will on us, is even weaponized against us. Who would have thought that a mother going to a school board meeting because she's concerned about critical race theory and forced masking would earn attention from the Federal Bureau of Investigation? Who would have thought that some of the things that have happened? So that is a constitution that's out of whack. It is not being implemented the way our founding fathers envisioned. Think about religious freedom. You have these situations that happen. Coach Kennedy in Washington State was a football coach. He would pray at midfield after the games. Wasn't forcing anyone to do it. A lot of the athletes wanted to do it, I went to public school. We prayed for baseball games. I mean, it wasn't a big deal. But yet he lost his job because he did that. And he takes it all the way to the United States Supreme Court, and he wins a 6-3 victory. And that was framed as a victory for religious liberty. But, you know, I thought about it and I said, the fact that that case is going to the Supreme Court shows me we've got a lot of issues with protecting religious liberty. That should not have even been a case. And what's happened in this country, and you see it with some of these other court decisions like 303 Creative, 6-3. So it's a victory, right? But you have 3 liberal justices that would have forced a conservative business owner to do messages that they disagree with and that violates their conscience. That's bad enough. What's worse is if it was a liberal business owner being forced to do a conservative message, those 3 liberal justices, they would have voted the other way. So how do you make sense of that? And I think the way you make sense of it is the left-wing elites in this country, they will say that if we want to just say under God and the Pledge of Allegiance, that that's somehow an establishment of religion. But yet they're the ones that really want to establish a religion. Yeah, they don't want to reestablish traditional religions. Their religion is leftist ideology. That's what they want this country to be governed under. So as a Christian, they will say, go to church. Yeah, have your fun on Sunday for that 1 hour. But don't you dare bring that into public life. Don't actually live your life and live your faith. They will not abide by that. And if there's ever a conflict between you living your faith and practicing your faith and their agenda, they expect you to bend the knee. That is not religious freedom as our founding fathers understood it. Our founding fathers rebelled against the idea that religious freedom was basically tolerated by elites in government, so that if an elite wanted you to be able to have a certain amount of freedom, you could do it. If they didn't want you, then you didn't have to. That era of toleration ended when we declared independence and said, you know, these rights do not come from the government, they come from the Lord our God. They are natural, God-given rights, and that includes, of course, the right to practice your faith. That's what the Constitution codified with the First Amendment. George Washington wrote a letter to the Hebrew congregation of Newport because they thanked him, saying, look, we get to practice our faith in America. Can you believe that? And Washington said, isn't it a joy that you are able to practice not at the courtesy of elites, but as a matter of God-given right? That's what America's all about. So the battle for religious freedom is the left wants to return us to an era of toleration where their agenda takes precedent. The rest of us have to bend the knee, versus my vision, and I think most people's vision here, which is no, your right to practice and live your faith is God-given, and it cannot be infringed by the government.